treat myself to a bag, treat myself with material things.
You talked about the examples, right? It's exterior. I care about myself, and this is how. Self-love is more of an internal thing, it's an intrinsic thing. That is a determinant of the level of love in your relationship with the self.
I had to love myself.
Yes.
And to me, that came through a process that was very painful. What's going on, tribe? It's your girl, Massy, and welcome to this exclusive series, Master Your Mind and the Body Will Follow. Do you love yourself? A lot of people think that they love themselves because they practice self-care, but even though these two are connected, they are not the same. I am your host, Massy Arias, and we're still here with Delena Zimmerman, and we're going to touch on a topic that is extremely important if we are looking for a change, not only with our minds, but also with exercise. Self-love.
Self-love.
Let's talk about it.
What is it?
Yeah.
It's easier to talk about what it isn't, and then we're left with what's in the middle. What brings us up is how many people were taught in their childhood from the teachers, your parents, your caregivers, how to love yourself. I was taught how to have manners. I was taught how to do hygiene. I was taught how to clean the home. I was taught how to be smart, learn things, education. But I can't say that I had a lesson in self-love, how to love myself. It was assumed that I loved myself because I looked good. It was assumed that I loved myself because someone cared for me. It was assumed that I loved myself because I got good grades. But did I really love myself? Did my mother love herself? Could she transmit this particular principle that would affect my mental health for the rest of my life? So what is self-love? It's a relationship that you have with yourself. We're all in a relationship with ourselves, but is it a loving relationship? Now, what do you know about that?
What do I know about self-love?
Who taught it to you?
No one did.
Right.
I had to learn that, and as you asked that question, I think I'm still learning how to love myself at different stages of my life since I have a daughter. And I love her so much that sometimes I forget about myself. And like you said, I don't think it was taught to me. I think I had to learn how to love myself, to get out of unhealthy relationships, to decide that I did not want to be this person with lack of confidence, to decide that I needed to do something healthy in order to come out of my depression, to decide that I was going to live a life where I found purpose. I had to love myself.
Yes.
And to me, that came through a process that was very painful, that came with a lot of ups and downs, came with sometimes even hurting people, hurting myself.
For sure.
And what a journey. So one of the shocking statements that I introduced this episode was with self-care, because we think, oh, I take care of myself. I'm going to go and do my hair, and that's how I love myself. I am going to treat myself to a vacation, treat myself to a bag, treat myself with material things. But when you ask me that question, I feel like self-love, the way it shows up at a deeper level, it shows up with the boundaries I set with people, with choosing the energy that resonates with me. If something is good for me, I go for it. If it's not, I'm confident enough to say, well, I will walk away from this. Whether it is an addiction, whether it is lack of movement because I need it, whether it is leaving a relationship, leaving a job, leaving things. So boundaries, I see that. Just choosing myself when I need to without being guilty of it, because we spoke about this. I feel guilty of being in this position. I feel guilty that I am here and some of my family members are not, or some of my friends are not, and I feel bad about it. So, or even a relationship, I no longer feel bad about those things. And I took a lot of work.
Good.
So that's what it looks like to me.
That's what it looks like.
And I'm still learning.
Well, self-care is really like how we treat our bodies, right? Like you talked about the examples, right? It's exterior. I care about myself, and this is how. But self-love is more of an internal thing, it's an intrinsic thing. Like I said, we're in a relationship with ourselves. All relationships include ritual and language. So, what rituals do you have with the self? And what language are you speaking to the self? That is a determinant of the level of love in your relationship with the self. We learn love at our mama's house, nowhere else. That's where we learn. In the family system, it teaches us love. And so many of us know that love includes pain, right? It includes punishment. It includes guilt. It includes shame. You can be paid off at your mama's house to behave, and it's called love. Many of us have not even heard, I love you in the home. I was told, I provide for you. That's the proof that I love you. No one said, I love you. Good night, baby, I love you. That didn't happen. And so if it's not reflected back to the child, then how does the child internalize it and know it? Here's a fact. It's not a fun fact, but it is a fact. Children from an age of 5 to 12, actually from in vitro, in the uterus to age about 11 or 12, are just downloading information. The operating system is being built. They cannot negotiate information. It is absolute thinking. That's why they don't teach algebra until about 12 years old. Children are simply learning content. And then when they're about 12 years old, that's why teenagers are smart Alex, because all of a sudden their brains have turned on to another level. They take what they know and they use it. So I am learning complete and absolute understanding of what it is to be good enough, what it is, what love is, and the inferiority complex that is built in humans is built from age 5 to 12. It is just a developmental stage where children are comparing themselves at every intersection of their lives. So by the time I get to middle school, I'm convinced there's parts of me that aren't good enough. I'm convinced that I'm unlovable in some cases. I've learned punishment. I've learned pain. And so now I'm going to take these ideas I have and I'm going to create a persona, a veneer of sorts to cover it. I don't love myself. I just look like I do. I have a veneer that sits on top of it. And my veneer is sexy. My veneer is academically achieving. My veneer is, I'm a stoner. My veneer is many things. Funny is another veneer to cover up this unloved self. And we talked about it in the first video. And children that do not get their emotional needs met, that do not know what a healthy love is, grow up, they haven't gotten their emotional needs met, and they do not know what healthy love is. Disney taught us that someone's coming to love you, that it's outside of you. Who's come to change that feeling in your stomach when you have it? Who can? It must come from within. So I think talking about what self-love isn't kind of helps us see how broad this thing is and how it impacts mental health, how it creates alcoholism, how it creates drug addiction, how it creates eventual suicidality. It's happening in everybody. And if we don't come up with a plan to love ourselves, we lose.
I knew that today I was going to be getting like a therapy session. I'm starting to sweat, because it's like your life flashing by, of all the things that have led you to be at a certain point. And I think understanding this, it's important to better ourselves, understand ourselves, not be in these moments in which we can stay there forever. And sometimes to the point where it devalues us even forever. So the question is, how do we begin to foster that self-love? What are some strategies that we can use? Because if it has never been taught, think about it from the standpoint of even relationships. We are all working on relationships.
Yeah.
I believe that there's good in every single person. What I believe is that there are unhealed patterns from the very beginning. And when two people come together, they're coming with all that baggage.
Yeah.
And it can become destructive. And we're seeing it more and more and more and more. So how do we begin to create a narrative? Because we constantly hear, you have to heal. I don't know where to start.
Yeah, what is that?
That's even with exercise. Where do you even start? So there has to be a very subtle approach to starting and working your way up.
You know, I got emotional too, because the first step is to forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for what you didn't know. How could you know? Forgive yourself for the choices that you've made based on your survival skill. Not feeling good enough, not feeling lovable creates behavior. I think it, I feel it, and then I behave it. And because I can't outperform my belief system, I'm going to have the performance of a person that doesn't believe they're good enough and that doesn't know how to turn the corner. First step is to forgive yourself. And when you have the same behavior again after getting the information, to forgive yourself again. And what goes along with that is forgiving your mama and forgiving your papa. Because my mother couldn't teach me self-love because she didn't love herself. My grandmother couldn't teach it to her because she didn't love herself. And how far back does that story go? So we absorb it. And so we break the cycle. And so that our legacy of relationships includes self-love. And it starts with us. And if you didn't know what your purpose was, maybe it's this. Maybe it's making it stop with you, and everyone that you come in contact with now learns that there's another way. So it begins with affirming the self, right? Remembering there's a soul in there. It's good and very good. And that the mistakes that you've made along the way, they're useful. You can learn from them. You can grow from them. They're here to expand your soul. You know, we talked earlier, I said, if we could pick our obstacles in life, which ones would we pick? And the truth is, we'd pick none. We believe we came to this planet to be comfortable, to only have pleasure. But that's not what this is about.
That's the story we're being sold
That's
left
right.
and right through social media, through advertisement. And how do we begin to understand that life is lifing for everyone?
Everyone. We are in a country that must sell us ideals so that we can use our money to keep the economy going. Love is not outside of you. It never has been. No one's ever said, here, Massy, here's some love. Put that in your pocket. They can't, because love is inside. You activate it like an app on your phone. How often are you pulling up the love app? How often are you seeing yourself in the lens of love? Love is life. That's the synonym for love, life. Showing up for it, being present for it, living in the now moments. So I started a self-love practice about 4 years ago, personally. I was in a very, very interesting relationship. I can use the word toxic, but I'm going to call it interesting. It was an amazing lesson to learn. And in this, because I was coming from a place from my childhood, he emulated my mother. So when he felt that I would make mistakes, he would withhold his love. But that's the way I knew love, so I couldn't leave it. I knew it that way. My mother would tell me to go in my room or don't say nothing to me. That's how I knew love. That's how powerful this thing is, because I learned it in my absolute mind and my absolute thinking. It was just how I knew love. And I wasn't even aware that I was in it because it was normal. So I was teaching others self-love, and guess who got the best lesson? And I began to fortify myself. I began to, in the shower, this is the practice I'm going to leave the group with. In the shower every day, I got in a relationship with my 7-year-old self. Aspect of my life where I didn't get my needs met. My parents divorced. No one checked in on the 7-year-old. My grades were good, so they figured I was cool. But I was melting. I was melting. And so I go back to a time when I needed someone to check on me and tell me it was okay. And so I reparent her. Every day in the shower, I bring her into my awareness. The water's on my face, and I call her in. And I say, hey, baby girl, how you doing? I love you. I'm going to take you with me today. I listen to what she needs. It's my ritual. I'm in a relationship with myself. And my language is affirmative. It's accountable. It's peaceful. I tell myself, I'm so happy you were born. Has anyone ever said that to you? Imagine saying it to yourself. And sometimes I dance. I let myself be silly. And I let myself be free. And when I leave out of the bathroom, I am anchored. I am grounded. I love myself. And then I answer text messages. And then I turn on the screen to meet with my clients. And then I call my boo, right? And then I cook my food. I'm even cooking my food from a place of love. I'm grounding in the grass outside because I know I am one with the universe. I know that I am one with the Creator. That's why I love myself. That's why I have high self-esteem. That's why I have confidence. I give it to myself so that I can walk in any room. And it doesn't matter what your credits are. I know you're not an 11 and I'm an 8. I know they were both 10s. That's how I love myself. I am in a relationship with myself where there is healthy ritual and there is language that affirms me. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps. And I think it's interesting that, we can take the example that you gave. Let's say we are attaching hurt and keeping that hurt and not truly forgiving ourselves and even giving the other person grace.
Yeah, come on.
I told you that I often talk to myself because if I sat here as the youngest, I was the youngest out of all my siblings, and I had to become very independent because all the energy went to the other siblings that were a lot. So while this is why I'm pretty much independent, I just had to figure it out. I'll figure it out, right? But imagine if I held to that feeling towards my parents, that resentment, this is trauma.
It is.
Right? That I can put in my head and say, this is now me, the person that was never loved, the person that, and I'm not saying that I wasn't loved, but in all these moments, because at some point I had to do this exercise with you, right? Of going back to a place, I was getting teary here, going back to a place in my childhood where I felt lack, And I think one of the biggest lessons that I could ever give someone in terms of movement, because we have to be courageous.
Yes.
This is part of my routine in my self-practice. And I constantly tell people, like, listen, this is the medicine. It's the pill that I take every single day.
Yeah.
Meaning I come first, This is part of my ritual. And it even transcends to being present in every single thing that I do, whether it's cooking my food. Like, I have built rituals, and that's what I'm also teaching my daughter. And when I say, I learned this as a parent as well, routine, 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 right? So I follow a routine and a ritual, and I honor myself.
Honor myself.
Right? And how we said it on the other episode, that you have to unlearn to actually make room for what's to come,
Yes.
right? And for the future, it may sound silly what you just said. Even going to the shower, affirming yourself. It's going to be silly before it starts working. And we even see it in exercise and nutrition as a coach.
Yes.
Visualizing. You have to visualize that you're going to perform this technique that I teach and that I use, right? Seeing yourself performing the movement, being successful through the movement, and the mind follows and it changes.
Yeah.
So that's very, very interesting.
It's how we learn. It's through repetition.
Yes.
It's something you said, it is going to feel unfamiliar. If you've been telling yourself, oh, you're so stupid, unconsciously, all this time, then it's going to be uncomfortable to start telling yourself, you're amazing. It's okay. Here's grace to yourself. It's going to feel uncomfortable to hug yourself. I hug myself every day until I feel hugged. The way my grandmother hugged me. There's a little rock to it. I do whatever it takes for me to believe when I walk out of the bathroom, and I don't care what bathroom I'm in, I don't care what time zone I'm in, I don't care whose house I take a shower in, whether it's morning or night. If I'm at the spa and water is running, I am dropped down in myself, checked in with the love of my life, me.
Yes.
It is me who I've been looking for all this time. It is me. It is inside of me. And then I bring my loved self to relationships. You don't have to fix me and make me whole. I bring my whole self to you.
Grace.
And so everyone reaps the benefit of the work that we do in our private lives. Because if you don't do it in private, you will not be able to do it in public. Don't miss that one. It is the private life that makes for healthier relationships, better responses to your purpose work, what you do to create, what you do in your workplaces. It is what is done in private. So speaking of confidence, you appear in the world very confident. How'd you get there?
So I don't think I've ever shared this, but we talk about how in order to change the old, you have to open up yourself to something new, and new things take practice. And I remember people think that exercise comes natural to me and that I am this athlete, and they don't know the other side.
Right.
How much of a shift in learning I had to do. I remember having to run, and I am not a runner. I despise running. I have exercise-induced asthma, but I still do it. And I remember telling myself, talking to myself, I remember sometimes I would cry, sometimes I would feel anger, sometimes any emotion that would come my way. I remember just running and telling myself, come on, Massy, you can do this. Sometimes I do this. It hasn't left. This practice hasn't left. But I would find myself saying, Massy, you can do this. Come on, girl, you can do this. Come on, girl, you can do this. You got this. Come on, believe it. That became such a practice that it rewired my brain to do really hard things that I never thought I would do. And the level of hard looks very different depending on where you are, fitness-wise, right?
Yeah.
Fitness-wise,
Everything.
walking 30 minutes might look hard to that person that has never walked or who's overweight. That hardness, this is why we shouldn't judge anyone for where they are. And we should not just look at all these grandiose events and hardcore things and just attach value to that, because we all have a starting point. But I remember telling myself all these things. And in every vertical, this is why I say that exercise taught me so much. It taught me how to believe in myself, breaking through those barriers. It gave me confidence in that aspect, even to be behind a camera. I had to build confidence. So the confidence that I was getting in the gym translated in all these different verticals. Like, wait a second, I can really do hard things here in the gym and really push my body and myself through all these different levels that I never thought possible. What does that look like in my career? What does that look like even in my relationships? What does that look like in the relationship that I have with myself? If I can do all these hard things with confidence, I also have, to allow it to, or not that I have to, it carried. So my confidence, even when I'm not confident, I'm going to show you confidence because I'm manifesting this, and I'm very assertive. Very, very assertive. And very funny behind camera, but you don't know that. I should show it more often. But I think what we are going to take away from this, especially me, is how to check in with myself and how to love myself more, because I am in a relationship with myself.
That's right.
I have to provide that love, that reassurance, that nurturing. Everything that I think I lack, I have to find it. And I know it's going to be uncomfortable. I was getting teary. I don't know if you were looking at my eyes and seeing like they were getting glossy, but I was getting teary because these are things that I have to even apply and learn in other verticals of my life. This has been such a wonderful conversation. And I really, really encourage everyone to seek deeper in a very surface level society that we're in right now, where everything is so quick, where people are moving and you're scrolling on your videos. You have to be able to seek deep thoughts, to continue to just dig deeper and not just gloss over to what's like, okay, what is the first thing that I see when I see this one thing that's presented in front of me? Can we dig deeper? That's exactly what I'm doing, continuing to do that.
We have to.
Yeah.
The final thing I wanted us to touch was that, like in all relationships, it may seem awkward on the front end, but it is in our investment in the relationship, the morning text, the night text that you might be having with a new person of interest. Well, you want to give that to yourself. You turn your life, your will and your life over to the care of strangers. What about turning your will and your life over to the care of yourself, where you are morning texting yourself, or, just checking in with yourself throughout the day? Build the relationship that you want to have. In this world, we were taught that someone was going to come and give it to us. But no, you're going to give it to yourself. And you're going to build that relationship. And before you know it, it's going to be the safest you've ever felt, in love with yourself.
Oh, I'm in love with myself.
I'm in love with myself.
Thank you so much, Delena. I can't wait to have the next conversation. This was amazing, but I know we have something that I'm really interested about and that I often talk about, the power of the mind and positive thinking, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's my joy.
Thank you so much. So you have to remember that the first step to self-love is forgiving yourself for what you didn't know. Remind yourself that you are in a relationship with yourself. So you have to choose a healthy relationship with yourself, where there is ritual and language that is conducive to a healthy relationship. And the last thing that I want to touch is, let's work on an affirmation. I love myself enough to. Think about that. I want you to start writing in the comments something that maybe you're lacking, but you really want to work on. So let me just give you some ideas. I love myself enough to move. I love myself enough to eat well. I love myself enough to leave this unhealthy part of me. I love myself enough to leave this environment that's causing me pain. I love myself enough to. Now tell me in the comments what you love yourself enough to do. Remember, be courageous. Just like last week, we have the next upcoming mobility video that I would like you to practice 2 to 3 times this week as a tool to help you move and feel better, okay? Remember to subscribe, like, comment, and share this with whoever needs it. We're going to be having another episode on positive thinking, and I'm really excited about this one.